My husband is demanding that we name our daughter after his deceased ex-wife because he believes she's reincarnating in her. I'm going to divorce him if he threatens to do it, if I don't agree. I'm pregnant, almost 2 months along, and my husband, who's 34, and I, who's 30, are really happy about it. We got married about a year ago after dating for 3 years. Before me, he was married to his deceased ex-wife for 2 years before she passed away in a tragic car accident. They got married right out of college after dating for 4 years, but at 26, he was already a widower. He didn't get serious with anyone else until he met me. I knew about his ex, her passing, and that he likes to remember her fondly. Of course, I respect that. She was the first woman he loved, and I think it's really unfortunate what happened. But at the same time, my respect doesn't mean I'm going to let him name our first child after her. That's what he wants, and it seems like his family agrees with him, which I don't understand. A couple of days ago, his family came to visit, and his mom casually asked if we had thought about baby names yet. I said no, because we didn't even know the baby's gender and it was too early. But my husband said yes, and mentioned he'd been thinking about naming the baby after his ex-wife. When I said we didn't even know if it would be a girl, he said we could use a male version of the name. The fact that he'd thought so much about this was a little disturbing to me. I thought about talking to him about it later once his family left, but this was too important to wait. So I asked him if he was serious, in front of his family, and he said yes. Apparently, he believes this baby is his ex reincarnated, and the only reason he feels that way is because the due date is in the same month his deceased wife's birthday was. That's all he's basing this on, and I find it incredibly disturbing that he's even considered this, but never mentioned it to me. I immediately shut down the idea. I told him we weren't doing that. It was weird and creepy. And after all, this was my baby too, and I wasn't comfortable with it. But he started arguing with me, and even the rest of the family started taking his side. Soon, things got out of control. We were yelling at each other, and the family was trying to calm us down, but he called me hypersensitive and jealous. He said I was being insecure, and that's why I didn't want to honor his ex. That wasn't the case at all, and it was crazy that he couldn't see that. Even his family, while trying to calm us down, kept telling me I should think about it calmly and not overreact, because that's what I was doing, and that I was being too hormonal about it. It was very insulting to me, and after a while, I just snapped. I told them I couldn't do this anymore. I went to my room, packed some things, and went to my parents' house for a while. They tried to stop me and told me I was being too emotional. But I didn't care. I just needed to get away from them. Now, for the last few days, I've been staying with my parents, and they're completely on my side. They've told me I'm doing the right thing, so I've been fighting with my husband, trying to get him to see my point of view. But he refuses to budge on this. He's been trying to get me to change my mind. Am I really being too emotional about this? Am I the bad guy for not agreeing to name my first child after my husband's deceased ex-wife? Update 1. I was thinking, and I decided to go back home and talk to my husband in private, without his family around us and taking his side. That felt more like an ambush, and we couldn't have a calm conversation between us. I thought it would be better if it was just the two of us, because that way it would be easier to get him to listen to me. It was time we had a one-on-one conversation, instead of arguing over the phone or by text. It's been 6 days since I left, and yesterday afternoon I went to see him. Even though I made the effort to go talk to him, after he opened the door he was pretty cold with me, not like how he normally acts. That really bothered me because I was going to be the mother of this man's child, and I couldn't believe he was acting like this, especially when I had valid reasons for disagreeing with what he wanted. Anyway, since I was there, I decided I should just do it and rip the Band-Aid off. So, I told him I didn't think it was a good idea, and as calmly as I could, I tried to explain how uncomfortable this whole thing made me feel. I told him I didn't find it touching like the rest of his family did, but more strange, not just for him, but for both of us. That's why I didn't think it was a good idea. I basically told him everything I'd been saying in my texts and phone calls, but this time in person, hoping he'd respond differently. But as you've probably guessed, he didn't. In fact, if anything, he reacted even more strongly. This time, he was completely against my idea of not naming our child after his ex and started insisting that we do it, or else he didn't see a future with me. That was crazy. The fact that I'd been with him for so long and that we were about to have our first child together and that he was willing to end our marriage over this just didn't make sense to me. I had no idea why he was doing this. I tried to reason with him, telling him he was being ridiculous and that he was going to regret it later, so he should probably avoid saying things he didn't mean, but he said he really meant it, that he didn't want to be with me if I couldn't understand his feelings about this. He admitted that he had been afraid I'd react exactly how I was reacting now, and that's why he hadn't discussed this with me before his mom mentioned it that day. He started telling me that his ex really meant a lot to him, and that he believed this was a sign from the universe that our child was going to be born in the same month as his ex. That's why he thought it would be a mistake not to take that into account when choosing our child's name. He tried to make it seem like he was asking very little of me, but that wasn't true. Yet what he was asking was insane, at least in my opinion, and many of yours. After a while, I felt like we were just talking in circles. So I ended up collapsing on the couch next to him because I just didn't know what to say to make him see reality. I regretted going to talk to him because he clearly wasn't ready to listen to me. He was stuck in his own beliefs, and that was all that mattered to him. No matter how ridiculous or irrational they sounded, that's all he believed and cared about. Honestly, I thought he was going crazy because, other than that, I couldn't think of any other explanation for his behavior right now. But when I started crying, he started being a little more gentle. Up until that point, his tone had been very different. He wasn't exactly yelling at me like the other day, but I could tell he was speaking pretty loudly just to intimidate me. However, after I started crying, he started talking softly, like he usually does. He tried to tell me that he really regretted being so crazy about this whole thing, but that in the end, this was really important to him and I needed to realize that. He told me he'd been thinking about this since he did the math and came to the conclusion about the due date. And he just couldn't ignore that sign. Supposedly, it would be too disrespectful to her memory, and he can't do that to her. He told me it's not like he hasn't moved on from his loss, but that he still loves her, and that doesn't take away from the fact that he also loves me and is going to love our child. All he's asking is that I at least consider what he's asking, instead of rejecting it outright without even thinking about what it means to him. When I thought he was being a little more reasonable, I decided to ask him if this really was a reason to break up our relationship, and if he was serious about ending our marriage over this, like he said at first. He thought about it for a couple of seconds, didn't even look at me, and stayed completely silent. But then he finally looked at me and told me yes, he was serious. Because apparently, in his opinion, if I rejected this, it was like rejecting understanding him as a person, and that was something he couldn't deal with. He wanted his wife to be someone who understood him on every level, who respected his opinions. If I couldn't do that, then maybe we'd be better off not being married. Honestly, I was shocked. I didn't know what to say, because before, even though I thought he was acting like a crazy person, at least I could believe that he was saying all this because he wasn't feeling well mentally or something. But when he said this so calmly, as if he was being very rational and logical about it all, it was harder to think that he didn't mean it. At that moment, I knew he was serious, and that there was nothing else I could say to him. It was very disappointing to me. But after he said that like it was so normal, I decided to leave. Because, honestly, nothing he was saying made sense. And I didn't want to keep wasting any more of my time and energy on him. After that discussion with him, I went back home and told my parents everything he had said. They were shocked that he was really considering a divorce over something like this, and they told me they'd like to talk to him themselves just to see if they could get through to him. But I told them not to bother because I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be nice to them, and I didn't want that. Besides, this was between him and me, and I didn't want to involve my parents. So anyway, that's how the conversation with him went, and right now, I just have no idea what to do about the situation. It's insane. It really is, and I can't imagine why he's acting like this. All this time, I've always been very respectful of the relationship he had with his ex, because it seemed like she was a wonderful woman. From what I've heard about her, she was a really good person. I respect that, and I'm glad he had that in his life. But that doesn't mean I have to do what he says when it comes to her. I don't feel insecure about her, nor am I jealous. I just think it's messed up for him to name his child after someone he was married to. And as the mother, I think I should also have a say in something like this. So, if this is a reason for him to end our relationship, so be it. I don't care about any of that anymore. Being very honest, especially after what happened yesterday, I don't even think he's in his right mind, and that he really knows what he's asking for right now. Update 2. Well, it's been 3 days since the last time I saw my husband, and I know a lot of people in the comments have said I should file for divorce and start thinking about a custody agreement or whatever, but honestly, I just haven't had the energy to do any of that. I know I should. I'm aware of that, but emotionally and physically I've been so exhausted that I haven't been able to do anything. I've been crying every second I'm awake, unless I'm at work. But even there, people have noticed that I'm not behaving like I usually do, and it's been hard not to break down at work too. The truth is, I'm not ready to leave him behind. I don't want to get divorced, and I really want this marriage to work, because I love him. I really miss him, and I can't believe he's doing this to me. I hate him for it. I'm angry at him, of course, but still, I just can't deal with the idea of ending this marriage, and I can't understand how he said it so easily the other day. It just doesn't make sense because literally just a few weeks ago we were so happy thinking about baby furniture and planning the nursery and stuff like that. And now we're thinking about divorce, so I don't even understand how all this happened. Honestly, I feel like I'm going crazy right now, and the fact that I can't exactly talk to anyone about it hasn't helped either. The only time I can freely talk about this is when I post here, and that's okay, I guess, but it's not the same as talking to someone in my life. I can't talk to my parents about this because every time I mention it, they get really indignant on my behalf, which I honestly understand. I think it's sweet of them, but they keep telling me that I need to talk to him and make him see that he's ruining everything. They believe I should let him know that he's destroying everything for both of us, to talk some sense into him, or else just talk to a divorce lawyer and end this so that at least I can spend the rest of my pregnancy without having to deal with him, because clearly he's causing me a lot of stress, and that's not good for me or the baby right now. And they're right, I understand that, but I just don't want any kind of advice right now. I just want to vent about what's happening to me. But they're my parents, and of course they want what's best for me, so they're going to tell me what they think. I also don't want to fight with them, so I just haven't been saying anything. As for my friends, I can't talk to them about this either, because it's too personal. It's not like I haven't tried. In fact, I tried to mention it to my best friend, or rather, I thought I would, but I just couldn't. So I've been suffocating in silence, and it's been horrible. I haven't even heard anything from my husband since I left the other day, so I really don't know what to expect from him either. I want him to talk to me, to at least try to fix things with me. But so far it seems like he doesn't care about what's going on. In fact, it's gotten to the point where I've started to think that maybe he's already given up on us, and that I'm the only one still holding on for God knows what reason. I feel like a fool, but I can't help it. I really don't want my child to grow up in a broken home, but now I don't see any other alternative. It's definitely depressing, to say the least. But that's how things are right now. Update 3. It's been a week and a half since I last posted here. Since I hadn't heard anything from my husband in a while, I decided to take my parents' advice. They had already spoken to a divorce lawyer for me. All we had to do was file the divorce papers, and we did. A couple of days ago, he was served the divorce papers. He finally messaged me that day asking if I was being serious about this, and if I had thought it through. I didn't know what to tell him, so I didn't respond for a couple of hours. But then he called me. I answered the call, and he didn't seem to be too upset. He just asked me the same question one more time, very politely, so I told him it wasn't like this was making me happy. I was pretty upset about all this, but given the way he was acting, I didn't see another way out. Clearly, he wasn't happy, and if the only way to make him happy was to agree to the baby's name, then I'm sorry, but I couldn't do that for him. He kept talking in that same voice, without tone, without emotion, being very polite. And for some reason that was very frustrating for me because it seemed like this was just a minor inconvenience for him. Anyway, he said he was going to give me a couple of days to think it over so I could still stop the process if I wanted to, and change my mind about what he was asking. But if within the next 5 days I didn't change my mind, then he would sign the papers and we could move forward with the divorce. According to him, we clearly don't understand each other as well as we thought. Because of his tone, I ended up snapping at him, asking him if all this was a joke to him or something, because otherwise I didn't understand why he was acting like this wasn't a big deal. Then he told me that it definitely was a big deal for him too, and that he had hoped I would try to talk to him again. He had been waiting for me to change my mind, but since I decided I wasn't going to, he didn't see the point in losing his temper. With me, because obviously I didn't care about him. He said he wasn't really asking for much, just the freedom to name his first child, and that if I couldn't even give him that, then obviously that would make him question his marriage and that he couldn't blame him for that. Once again, he was talking in that strange tone, and I just didn't know what to say to him at that moment, so I hung up without saying anything else. Then I ended up crying for a couple of minutes before receiving another message from him. He had written a long paragraph, basically telling me that all this was happening because of my fault, because I was being too stubborn, insecure, and jealous. Repeating everything he had said the first time, He told me that he was also very disappointed that things had come to this point and that he couldn't believe it either, because just a couple of weeks ago we were celebrating the fact that we were going to have our first child. And now, thanks to my stubbornness and my refusal to understand simple emotions, we were on the verge of breaking up. He said he was very disappointed in me, and that now he had started to rethink our whole marriage and if any of it had been real. It was extremely insulting because I always tried to be a good wife to him. No matter how much he talked about his ex or how much he praised her, I never let that affect me. I never felt insecure, I never got jealous, and instead I always found it very touching how he was so respectful and kind to her memory. But now that I think about it, I guess I was a little too optimistic and didn't realize that maybe he didn't just remember her fondly, maybe he was still in love with her and I was just a replacement or something like that. I'm not saying that's how it really was, because most of the time I really felt that he loved me truly and completely. But now, in retrospect, I don't know anymore. Now that I think about it, yes, it seems like he used to talk about his ex a little too much, but I never thought that was unhealthy. I guess that was my fault. I guess I didn't realize what was going on, and by the time I did, it was already too late. Anyway, in that message, he completely ignored the fact that he was the one who suggested getting divorced in the first place. I just took the initiative. He wanted it to be my fault. So fine, it's my fault, but I don't feel guilty about it anymore. I'm sick of him, and I'm sick of this marriage. I can't keep being unhappy for the rest of my pregnancy and let him ruin this wonderful experience. I'm determined to make the most of this stage, so I've blocked him, and although it's going to be very difficult for me, I'm determined to move on with my life now. Maybe he's happy living in the past, but I want to move forward in my life. So yeah, I'm done with this. And if he thinks all this is my fault, he's free to do so. Honestly, I don't care anymore, and I'm not going to rethink the divorce. It's a done deal. Update 4. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since I posted. I've been busy with the divorce and all that. The process is still ongoing, but it's a relatively straightforward process since he's not contesting anything, and we expect that this can end in just a few months or as soon as possible. But that's not what I'm coming to talk about today. This actually has to do with my in-laws. I haven't talked to them since the first fight with my husband that I had ages ago when everything really started, so I was very surprised to hear from them. Anyway, my mother-in-law called me yesterday, and after thinking about it for a while, I decided to answer. I was curious to know what they would have to say about this whole issue, given the circumstances. When I answered, my mother-in-law spoke along with my father-in-law, and they both apologized to me for everything that had happened. That was quite surprising for me because the last time I spoke to them, they were on my husband's side. They were the ones who told me I was being too emotional, so I couldn't understand this reaction. I was silent for a couple of minutes, so they continued telling me that they regretted taking my husband's side that day. But they know that he gets very sensitive when it comes to his ex-wife, and they didn't want to go against him. So they decided to support him that day, which was obviously wrong, and they should have been with me from the beginning, doing what was right and logical. They explained to me that they had tried very hard to convince him in recent weeks, but it hadn't worked. They hadn't contacted me because they were ashamed of themselves for not defending what was right that day, but now they felt they should apologize. They also told me that my husband hadn't really taken it well when his ex-wife passed away, which I can understand perfectly. But the problem is that even his parents feel that he never really got over it. So this only confirms my suspicion that maybe he's still in love with her, regardless of the fact that she's no longer here and that I'll never be enough. Talking to his parents only made me realize that I had made the right decision, because I don't think I would have had the strength to move forward with a man who was in love with someone who was no longer here. I don't have the strength to fight against the memory of a woman, and I don't wish to do so either, because if I have to fight for him against someone else, then it's probably better if I leave anyway. I accepted their apologies, because honestly, there wasn't much more to do. Anyway, the damage was already done. He was too lost and our marriage was over. Those were the facts, and no one could change that. Update 5. So it's been a couple of months since my last update, and yes, I'm already divorced. I'm making good progress in my pregnancy, and at least in that aspect, things are going well. Things have been difficult for me emotionally and mentally, but fortunately, I have my parents and friends by my side, and they have been everything I can ask for, and much more. I finally told my friends about everything that was going on. It's not like I was going to be able to hide a whole divorce, and they all made sure I was okay, so I'm very grateful for that. I finally found out the gender of the baby. It's a girl, and I couldn't be happier. My ex-husband attends certain pregnancy checkups with me. I still don't know how we are going to handle custody, since everything he has done has not been normal at all. But that's a problem for future OP because she hasn't been born yet, and when she does, she will have to spend time with her mother. But it's certainly something that I should be preparing with my lawyer. We have sold the house we used to live in, and as far as I know, he has moved back to his old apartment, the same one where he used to live before with his ex. So, I guess I wasn't wrong after all. It hurts, but I'll get over it and I'll be okay. Update 6. I know it's been a long time, about 2 years, but this has always been my safe place to tell you things. Reliving my story doesn't seem like such a bad thing after all. For those who have doubts, my daughter is already over a year old and happily living with me. Being a single mother with a baby is not easy, but I have my parents and friends who help me when I have to leave her with someone. And if not, there are babysitters. Thank God for creating them. Haha. I have answered this in the comments previously, but since I am making a post, I can clarify it here as well. My daughter's name is one that I chose and that my ex-husband ended up accepting, although reluctantly. It was one of those hard battles, but worth fighting. He tried to at least have her middle name be that of his ex-wife, but I told him no. Now let's go to the custody agreement. At first, the custody was completely mine and he could visit her as a baby. However, when we started talking about the final custody agreement, things got a little more complicated. In addition, there were some events that occurred almost at the same time with my ex. His mother called me one day to tell me that she had gone to visit my ex's apartment because every time she called him, she noticed him acting strangely. And when she did, she saw something disturbing, more disturbing than wanting to name our daughter after his deceased ex. He had a wall in the room full of photos and memories of his ex. Some will think it's cute, but his mother thought it was a satanic ritual because of the way it looked. I can't comment because I haven't even seen pictures, but if I already intended to ask for full custody, or at least majority custody, that confirmed it for me. If he believes that our daughter could be a reincarnation of his deceased ex, I don't know what he could do with her being alone. I don't know what kind of madness or dangerous situation he could put my daughter in. I don't even want to mention it. Luckily, my mother-in-law's statement and some evidence we presented with the lawyer were enough to get full custody. My ex-husband can still see her, but with supervision. And when he does, he visits us with his mother, which gives me some peace of mind. He has been working in therapy thanks to his mother's insistence, and I can say that it shows. I also appreciate her help in all this because I know that many mothers would not do what she did, but I know that deep down she did it because she cares about her granddaughter and the danger she could be in if my ex-husband has some kind of relapse. She also did it for her son to protect him from his own grief or whatever he's suffering from.